Now, I know the international break isn't even over yet, but I'm going to keep the FPL content flowing. So here are players to buy and avoid ahead of Game Week 13. Now, I've got to be honest, I just absolutely love Jarrod Bowen as an FPL option. He is a player that you can just hold on to all season long and he's going to reward you with returns. He's absolutely nailed to start for West Ham in the Premier League, plays 90 minutes every time he appears. Every time I've watched him play for West Ham as well, regardless of the opposition, he seems to get goal-scoring chances in every game. I think of the sub sort of 8 million forward midfielder category, Bowen is just the best by far. You just don't have to worry about him not starting. You just hold him, like I said, all season long and he's going to reward you. Looking at those stats, 8 goals from 4.9 expected goals. Apart from last season, Bowen is a player that historically overperforms his underlying numbers. So he's one of the rare cases. I say between Bowen and Son, they're the two real standout players in the Premier League that tend to overperform their underlying numbers. So yes, on the face of it, you might be a bit worried that those returns might dry up considering, you know, his underlying numbers are lower than what he's actually scored. But history says otherwise. I wouldn't be worried about that. I'd certainly be looking at Bowen. Saka is another one of these FPL options that just ticks every box. He's still a solid pick, regardless of, you know, how Arsenal have been performing. And they've received a bit of criticism recently for not being that threatening going forwards. Well, at least compared to what they were last season. But regardless of that, Saka is still consistently picking up returns. And I think for the quality of player that he is and the upside that he offers, 8.6 million is just a bargain for him, really. He's still Arsenal's designated penalty taker. He might not actually be taking all of them, obviously given some of them away already this season, but you just know he's going to take a few of them, right? And that's good enough for me. He's by far and away Arsenal's best player, definitely their talisman, and it's a similar kind of story to Bowen, really. He's going to pick up returns across the season if you just pick him and hold him, and he's absolutely nailed on that right wing for Arsenal, provided he hasn't got, well, a serious injury, because Arteta seems to be playing him no matter what. There's just no real competition on that right-hand side. Reece Nelson obviously can play there, but he doesn't offer the, you know, quality that Saka does going forward and the defensive effort that he puts in as well. I think all things considered, he is an unbelievable option. Now, I wondered if you could do me a favour. If you're enjoying the video so far, please make sure to leave a like rating, subscribe to the channel as well, set the notification bell so you can see when I upload next. If you're really enjoying the video, please consider joining as a channel member. You'll get early access to all of my videos, and when I deadline stream, I'll give you priority when I rate people's teams in Draft Hound. You can also, if you want to support the channel in a different way, check out my shop down below. You can buy yourself a golden goal sticker or a mug. All right, back to the video. I don't think we need to think twice about Jamal Lascelles, a 4.1 million starting Newcastle defender. And with Botman's injury, I think he's going to play for the foreseeable, at least until the new year. Again, he's gone up to 4.1, so that second point, not quite valid. But again, it's just ridiculous value for a starting Newcastle defender. Now, obviously, against Bournemouth, they had a disappointing game in result, but they did have numerous injuries. I'd say before they picked up the extra injuries when Lascelles was simply replacing Botman, and they had a full-strength team, there wasn't really any noticeable drop-off in performances. I didn't really see any difference with Botman in and out of the team. Lascelles was, you know, really playing out of his skin. I said the next 4 fixtures are lovely. That's not entirely true. Chelsea, Man United, Everton and Spurs are pretty tough fixtures, to be honest. But I wouldn't rule out, you know, Newcastle keeping clean sheets in some of those games, particularly at St James's Park. You know, they really made that place a fortress where they can get results in clean sheets against pretty much anyone. And if you don't fancy him in a particular fixture at 4.1 million, it doesn't really matter if you bench him. Can you tell I just love 90-minute nailed players? Eberiche Eze is another player that fully ticks that box. 2 returns in 2 games since returning from injury. Well, say 2 games, 1.5 games basically, because he came on as a sub in his first one and got an assist. He's just nailed for 90 minutes, takes all the penalties and free kicks for Palace and is their talisman. They've got a really nice set of fixtures coming up in the next 3. At 3.1% ownership, he's obviously a really nice differential. I'd also say you might be a little bit worried about Palace's threat from attack. But with Elise coming back in the team, I think they're going to be even more dangerous. You know, I think opposition players are going to have a bit more on their hands than just Eze. You know, when you've just got one threatening player, no disrespect to the rest of the Palace squad, but Eze is obviously their outstanding player at the moment. So defensive teams might want to put a double up on him to try and nullify. But with Elise back in the team, I just think they're going to be even more dangerous. I've noticed as well, game week 16, Palace play Liverpool and then Man City. There is a really nice fixture swing between Palace and Chelsea. Obviously, you can see it right there. Yeah, I just think, get Eze for the next few weeks. And then there is a particular Chelsea player I want to talk about next. I'm not necessarily saying go out and buy him for 13, 14 and 15 because those three fixtures might be quite tough for Chelsea. But as I mentioned under Eze, there's such a lovely fixture swing between Chelsea and Palace in game week 16 that I think Cole Palmer is almost essential from that game week in particular onwards. He just seems to be nailed in that Chelsea team. I expect him to still play with Nkunku back. He's Chelsea penalty taker. You know, Nkunku, I'd imagine, is the well, certainly at the start of the season was a designated penalty taker, but with how confident Palmer has been in his record so far, I see him keeping the penalties when Nkunku comes back. It might take Palmer missing one to get Nkunku back on them. You know, people saying on Twitter, and me in particular as well, I've said it, you know, 4 goals in the Premier League so far, all 4 of them from penalties. But I would say that whole penalty merchant narrative is a bit of a myth, really. He's still really dangerous from open play. He's got 1.7 non-penalty expected goals and 3 assists. So, you know, I think that proves that he's a little bit more than just a penalty merchant. Yes, those 3 fixtures coming up are tough. At 5.2 million, I don't really see any problem with that value for those fixtures anyway. But certainly from game week 16 onwards, he is a fantastic option. Now, before we get on players to avoid, there's one that kind of fits in the middle at the moment, and that's Heung-min Son. I think there are some pros and cons for him, and I'll come to a conclusion afterwards. But, you know, without Maddison in the team, I'd be a little bit worried personally about Heung-min Son's level of returns. However, he has proven in his Spurs career so far that he can score goals whoever is in the team. I'm pretty sure back when they didn't have Maddison and it was Harry Kane creating the most chances for Spurs, when Harry Kane wasn't in the team, Heung-min Son's numbers actually improved. He is obviously likely to be the Spurs penalty taker regardless of who else is in the 11. And he's of course just now to play every game for them for 90 minutes. And as a midfielder, he is kind of playing out of position because he is the Spurs centre forward. In terms of the cons, there is no Maddison in that Spurs team. And of course, we've only got one game to assess from Spurs when Maddison wasn't in the side. Against Wolves, he pulled up 0.17 expected returns per 90, and across the season with Maddison in the team, it was 0.62, so that's a pretty hefty drop-off. And, you know, Wolves are a tough fixture, don't get me wrong, particularly away from home, but I wouldn't say they're one of the best teams in the league, so that is a little bit concerning. He's also got Man City and Newcastle in the next 4, 2 of the best defensive teams in the league. I'd also say he's quite expensive now at 9.7 million. I think my, conclusion with Son, I wouldn't be rushing to buy him, but likewise, I wouldn't be rushing to sell him. I'd hold him if I've still got him, look elsewhere if I'm looking to buy someone. Now, Joachim, I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name, Anderson is one of the top scoring defenders in the league so far, and Palace are looking like one of the best defences as well. However, I would look for other Palace defenders to bring into my team. The likes of Gahey and Mitchell are all 0.4, 0.5 million less than he is. And when you compare the underlying numbers between the three, there's not a whole lot in it. So those 3 attacking returns Anderson has got, I'd say it's quite unsustainable, really. And not lucky. I think owners can count themselves lucky if they've held him from the start of the season. But I don't think it's sustainable. And I think the likes of Gahey and Mitchell and Anderson will kind of level out across the season, to be honest. Palace do have a nice run of fixtures, so it makes sense to be bringing their assets in. We saw with Eze, they've got 3 really nice fixtures up until game week 16. But yeah, I'd just simply be looking at Gahey and Anderson instead. I don't see any reason why you'd pay an extra $500,000 for him. Call me boring, favouring players that start every game and play 90 minutes, but Gabriel is a player I'd be looking to avoid. Don't get me wrong, I think Arsenal are looking reasonably decent defensively, and I do expect him to start some games and keep some clean sheets. But for me, the mental clarity you get from picking a defender that you just don't have to worry about starting games. And Gabriel as well, he's at risk of coming off the bench, so if you start him, it's not like your substitute on your FPL bench is going to come in. Gabriel's likely to come on in like the 80th minute and defend set pieces, etc. That's the kind of role that he's going to play in the games, of course, where he gets benched. So I just don't like him as an FPL option. Yes, he's playing for one of the best defences in the league. The underlying numbers are not great for goals, but he is always a goal threat from set pieces. He was the top defender last season for expected goals, but I just don't like him this season as an option. Arteta has shown that he likes to play Kivior against low block teams, and occasionally in other fixtures as well. I just don't trust Gabriel to start every game, and I wouldn't want him in my team. It's not quite the same for Martinelli, and I will admit he could still come good. You know, he's got a couple of seasons under his belt now where he has been a good FPL option, so I don't want to write him off completely, but right now, I don't think he's a priority player to be buying. The likes of Mbeumo, Eze, and Bowen that I've already spoken about, I think are better options. You know, there have been some injuries in the Arsenal team, which has meant Martinelli's played a considerable amount more minutes than I would personally have expected him to over the last couple of fixtures. But when the rest of the squad is fit, I do expect his minutes to be relatively limited. And he's not getting anywhere near the level of returns that he did last season. You know, he started 9 games so far, 1 goal and 2 assists. It's just not really anywhere near as good as where he was last season. I do think his output is limited to the lack of Gabriel Jesus in the team. Obviously, Nketiah is more of a poacher finisher, and Gabriel Jesus really likes to get involved in the build-up play. With Martinelli being that cut-inside, pacey left winger, balls in behind from Gabriel Jesus where he holds the ball up is really where Martinelli shines, and he's just been lacking that this season, really. Also, the fact that Arsenal are in the Champions League and the Premier League, they're going to be juggling those fixtures and juggling their players as well. So I do see Trossard starting some games. I just think, you know, talked about Mbeumo, I've talked about Eze, and I've talked about Bowen already. I think those 3 are better than Martinelli. Alright, and that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of those players I mentioned. Subscribe to the Golden Goal channel if you want to see more content from me. That should be just there. And I'll catch you in my next video.